What is up, Packers fans? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into our members only Q&A. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a member. If you are not a member and you're here watching afterwards, well, make sure to sign up to become a member. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I do open this up to people who are not members after the fact, so they can still, see all the information that we're going over through the course of the show. But definitely get a chance to look at those memberships when you have an opportunity to do so. But thank you again to all of you for being here. It looks like we've got a ton of questions in the chat already, so let's get to it right away and get to all of your incredible and wonderful questions. Starting with Ethan. If I criticize Matt, I also have to give him his flowers. Thought he called an amazing game on Sunday. That's how we want it to be called. Hope he can continue with it. I thought he called a great game on Sunday as well. Couple things that popped up, a couple plays where I thought maybe it was still a little bit too aggressive, but I would actually rather it err on the side of that rather than the stuff that we've seen where it was just was a little bit too cautious. If Gary is being outsnapped, outplayed, does it make him a good trade candidate for some draft capital? Why pay all this money for someone that's just not been great? I love Rashawn, but like ... Well, here's the first thing I would say. If you are recognizing that Rashawn Gary is getting outsnapped by Kingsley Enagbare, that he is not having a ton of sacks, and that he has a large contract number, so are the other 31 teams. I'm not saying he doesn't have trade value. What I am saying is just be careful of what you're expecting if there is any sort of trade. If it's always the thing of like, well, trade this player that I don't want for something I do want. Well, the other team has to desire the asset that you have. Rashawn Gary in a big contract who's getting outsnapped by Kingsley Enagbare and not getting a ton of pressures and has one of the lowest quick win rates in the entire NFL. You're only going to have so much value for that type of player. And there might not be trade value for that player. I think there would be, but we're talking day 3 at very best. I don't think it'd be anything more than that. But you're probably looking at wanting to move on from that contract in the offseason. You still have LVN and Micah Parsons at defensive end. You're probably going to have to make some upgrades in numerous spots without a ton of money to spend. And one of your ways to recoup some money and maybe a draft asset, even if it be a late one, is by moving on from Rashawn Gary. So I think that I tweeted it about right after the game. I said, you're about to start hearing a lot about Rashawn Gary's contract in 2026. And oh my goodness, have we heard a lot about it this week. I think Jason Hirschhorn had an article on it. I think there was another one too. I forget. And maybe it was Justice or maybe somebody at Acme Packing Company wrote about it. There've been a lot of articles. There's been a lot of radio talk already. It has been a big buzzworthy item this week. So yeah, it's going to be one of those where, listen, I think what we need to disseminate here though is that Rashawn Gary's a good football player. If anyone's thinking that Rashawn Gary's playing bad football, then we've gone too far in the opposite direction. He's good. He's playing fine. Like he's a net add to your team. If right now you said, would you rather have Rashawn Gary or not have Rashawn Gary? You would clearly rather have Rashawn Gary. But then when it gets to having the conversation of, with the money that you could save by moving on from him, plus potentially picking up a draft asset, is that a better use of assets and resources than just bringing him back for another year? That's where the question comes in. So he's playing fine. It's not like he's out there losing on a lot of reps. His run defense has been good, but he's not getting you the ROI that you were expecting, which is why it becomes more of a conversation specifically for this upcoming offseason. Major reform is needed to this coaching staff next season, special teams and offense. I don't think we talk enough about the wide receiver coach for the issues these wide receivers have at many times. At what point is it coaching? I get to talk about this, I think, every single show. I don't know. I of all the things that I can break down for you and that I can analyze and that I can tell you, hey, this is good, this is not good, I cannot tell you about assistant coaches. I just don't have the ability to judge that. Maybe the wide receivers coach, Mahaffey, is getting more out of this wide receiver group than any other coach would. Maybe he's the very best at it. He's probably not, but maybe he is. Maybe they go to a different wide receivers coach and it looks worse than what it does right now. Maybe he's the worst. Maybe he's the worst wide receiver coach. And if they had literally anyone else, it would look better than what it looks like right now. I have no idea how to judge that other than, like I've talked about, all I can go off of is who's achieving, who's overachieving, who's underachieving, etc. And that's the best way that I can possibly gauge it. To me, the offensive line is the big one. I think the offensive line as a total is underachieving. That would be the one where I would say, hey, we have to look at this. Wide receiver, I think, is a conversation as well. I don't see great attention to detail with the wide receiver room at the moment. Those would be fair. And of course, we know about special teams as well. Special teams coordinator, we can judge a little bit more. Like everything falls under Rich when it comes to special teams. So that we can judge. The individual player coaches or like the assistant special teams coach or things like that, that we're just basically guessing at or saying, well, I don't think players are playing as well as they should, or maybe I think players are playing better than I expected. But even that is a little bit subjective, or maybe a lot of bit subjective. So as far as assistant coaches go, Ethan, your guess is as good as mine. Do you see any common threads in approach, play style, etc., between how the defense has looked in 3 dominant games against Detroit, Washington, and Philly versus the somewhat frustrating performances in the other games? I haven't necessarily trended that out or, charted it out or anything like that. What I would tell you is, in the Giants game, for example, hold on to the damn interceptions. Tackle the guy on 3rd and 15. On the one drive where they scored a touchdown, you had 2 interception opportunities and dropped both of them. On one of the other touchdown drives was the 3rd and 15 tackle that Edgerrin Cooper missed, that if he gets him down there, you're getting the ball back when they punt it away. That's 2 of your touchdown drives that players were in a position 3 times to take 14 points off the board, or maybe 13 points if one of those was the missed extra point one. So that would be the big thing, is when you're given an opportunity to get off the field, get off the damn field. So, Carolina, they struggled to stop the run more in that game, but there was a lot of 3rd down opportunities again where they had the ability to get off the field and they couldn't. So if I haven't looked at it closely enough to say it for certain, but I would say look at the 3rd down conversion rate and look at the lack of big explosive plays on defense, whether that be takeaways, sacks, tackles for loss, etc. In Carolina, they really only had 2 of them. And that's why you maybe struggle a little bit more in that game. So again, I haven't charted it out, but that would probably be the starting point for where I would start looking. If the draft were today, how many resources would you put into the offensive line? Well, it's an interesting question, Mirko, because you're asking me if it was today, but between now and the draft, our decisions on Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, Darian Kennard, and Elton Jenkins. Not to mention free agency is before that as well. So I really need to see how many of their current Packers that they have re-signed and how many free agents that they signed at the position. If you're telling me right now, well, I'm going to assume that your free agents to be are gone. And in this case, I'm going to assume that Elton Jenkins is gone. Maybe they sign a free agent, maybe a veteran journeyman sort of free agent, Andre Dillard-esque, and maybe, I don't know, maybe something like I don't know, I'm trying to think of something they've done in the past, but not quite, maybe like a Nate Hobbs level signing, but on the offensive line. If it's that, I mean, I would say probably 2 or 3 offensive linemen, for 2 for sure, maybe 3. The other thing you have to worry about is the right players have to be there. You can't force it. Meaning, if you get to the point where you're picking in the 2nd round and all the best offensive linemen are gone, you can't just be like, well, we're going to pick one anyway. That's the worst thing you can do. Same thing in the 3rd. So I would say you want to come out of that draft with at least 2 offensive linemen. At the same time, like, I don't know that a couple like 7th round offensive linemen do you a ton. I don't know that changes the calculus all that much. So long story short, it's a really tough question to answer because I need to see what players they re-sign, what they do with Elton Jenkins, if they sign anyone in free agency, and then who's on the board when they're actually selecting, when their picks are up. And without that information, that makes it really, really difficult to kind of judge what they should do in that scenario. With Suckercraft out, which skill player can or should be the engine of the offense? In an ideal world, the answer is Josh Jacobs, but they don't have the run blocking to do it. So I think you just have to look at Christian Watson and eventually Jaden Reed. I think those 2 can make a really formidable 1-2 punch. I still think you would like to be multiple, but what I really would like to see is, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson playing a ton with really, Wicks, Golden, and Dobbs rotating a little bit more, kind of rotating the tight ends through, and then a lot of Josh Jacobs at running back. I think that's probably your best, option moving forward. But yeah, I think Watson and Reed would probably be my two answers because you can't run the football. No complaints about a Lions loss, but I hate the PI call on Rock Yassin. Your thoughts on this and the refs in general, and as brutal of a call as it gets for so many reasons. First and foremost, it's just a bad call. All right. If anything, and there's nothing there, but if anything, it was more offense than defense. Offense initiated the contact. On top of that, you are in a nationally televised game, and the team that's down by 7 is about to get the ball back with a minute and a half left on national TV against Philly's defense with an opportunity to go down and either tie or win the game. Cause knowing Dan Campbell, he probably goes for 2. It's great drama. As just pure football fans, we lose out on this awesome viewing experience of how can Jared Goff and that Lions offense go down and score against that Philly defense that's been so freaking good. That's what we want to watch. And now as Packers fans, we want Detroit to lose that game. So great, wonderful. No tears shed because of that. But in general, as just a pure football fan, we get screwed out of not being able to watch what should have been a very exciting ending to that game and have to watch some kneel downs instead because a ref I don't know what he's possibly looking at, or she's looking, I don't know who it was in that situation. So just a absolutely brutal call with a big time NFC game. And, one of the games of the week, games of the year, Philly, and Detroit in prime time, and a completely phantom call to end the game right then and there. So, it just goes to show you again, like, go out and play your best football and get yourself in a lead, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're down and, it's in the referee's hands. You don't want to put yourself in that situation, but a really crappy situation there. John, I may be the only person who was happy with that game. I knew they would play like crap. They did, but they got the win. Not great, but I was expecting worse. I think a lot of people were, willing to say like, hey, just win, baby. Like, style points be damned. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone was I think everyone was hoping for better and a little bit of a better performance overall, and not having as many self-inflicted wounds as they did. But to some extent, hey, get the win and let's regroup a little bit and see what Minnesota brings and kind of, get things back on track a little bit. So I wouldn't say I was, thrilled with it, but just happy to see him in the win column after 2 consecutive losses for sure. Maybe they'll wake up since it's a division opponent that swept them last year. I think they'll be, famous last words. I think they'll be fine / do well in this game. I really do. McCarthy's terrible. I know that they're not Green Bay meaning is not exactly clicking on all cylinders right now, but this should be a good game for Green Bay. I really think so. Not to say Wilson was bad. He was solid, but seeing each back get a half or so showed Jacobs is a better player. Yeah. I don't know if anyone was thinking Wilson was the better player. I don't know what to tell you. Jacobs just purely the better player. If everyone played with the same focus Evan Williams does, the Packers would win the Super Bowl. He's been great. I've talked about it, but one of my favorite players to watch on the season. Javon Bullard too. Those two were just awesome picks a year ago. Really, that defense, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper. I mean, that core of that defense, a big piece of it got built in last year's draft. And the fact that all 3 of those guys are only in year 2, that's a very, very exciting thing for this team moving forward. Did Musgrave look like a newborn deer in college too? It's a little bit different in college, but he certainly had sort of that raw talent of what you would kind of define it as, that he was still, trying to put it all together. I didn't think it looked quite this clumsy is probably the best way to put it. So yeah, he was never a great run after the catch player though. That was not his MO. But he looked a little bit better. He did have a lot of injuries in college though too. Like his last year at Oregon State, he barely played that year. So he was a little bit raw coming out, but that rawness has certainly not gone away in the last couple seasons. Want to see Colby Wooden get fullback snaps and short yardage? All right. No, I don't know if that would do anything, to be honest. You can give it a shot. I'm sure Wooden would probably be up for it, but I don't know if he's like the right type or not. Give it a shot. See what he can do. Also wanted to say the last 10 minutes of the pod talking about film watching and getting better at your craft while were very, very awesome. Loved hearing all that. That was one of those cool moments where, we kind of got like, so with Mike, I don't give a rundown to. Mike's just good to talk, whatever. But I make a rundown for myself of the things that I want to hit with Mike. And we had hit all the things that I want to hit. And then it just kind of ended with this completely unprompted, non-scripted or anything, really cool conversation about film watching. And I love that conversation because I just think that there should be a recognition from the vast, vast, vast majority of people of like, myself included, I'm talking as one of those people. There's a lot that you don't know. There is a lot that's going on in the field that you can watch a ton of tape and be as well versed and as knowledgeable as you want. And there are still things that you cannot and will not know. On the flip side, I think that you don't have to have a PhD in film watching to get a better understanding of what's going on by watching the All-22 and watching the film. I think the more you watch it, the more you're going to understand a lot of the concepts that Green Bay is trying to accomplish. You're going to pick up on more trends. You're going to see who's playing well, who's not playing well. You get a better feel for defensive football because you can't even really see the safeties on the TV copy. Like there's so much that you learn and gain by doing it. And like I told Mike, like I remember like the first time getting the All-22 of like, I didn't even know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to be spliced together or how I was like almost like nervous going into it of like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing. Just football. And you get to watch it. It's just different angles of the same game that you saw, and you get to see a better detail of it. And I love every second of it. If you can get it, NFL Pro, for those of you who think like I can't get film. NFL Pro has it. It's not that expensive either. I want to say it's like $100 a year, maybe something like that. It's not crazy expensive, whatever it is. And you get access to all that film, and that goes every team. You can search it by player. You can do some really cool stuff with it. So I highly recommend it. Now, what you want to be careful on is, because I do think there's a little bit of an epidemic of, well, now everyone has film and everyone's jumping to conclusions on stuff. I think that's some of the stuff that Mike was talking about of like, everyone's got film and everyone now can take a video of it and just spout something, right? And that's where I said, like, you almost have to be brave doing that because it is really easy to get things wrong. It is really, really easy to get things wrong. And you can look really stupid really fast by people who know ball, that know exactly what's going on in that play. Like I told Mike, there's a play that I saw somebody broke down as man-to-man coverage, and it was clear as day zone coverage. I mean, it could not have been more clear zone coverage, and they're breaking it down as man-to-man. So somebody posted the other day, what he was defining as bubble screens. And it was not a bubble screen. One of them was, we don't even need to get into it. But just some interesting stuff that's out there. So be careful of where you get your information from. But no, I highly recommend it. If you haven't had a chance to ever watch the film, just do it sometime. It doesn't even have to be from like the most recent game. You can find, I'm sure, some All-22 stuff on YouTube or wherever, and just start watching some of it just to see what it looks like. It's a good experience. You gain a lot from it for sure. Happy Tuesday, Andy. Excited to finally start facing the division opponents. Need to clap back at all of those bookmarks I've been saving. Can't have Matt let me down. Go Pack Go. Yeah, those are always fun to look back at. Hopefully Green Bay can take care of business. The interesting thing for me, I'm very much in the minority here. Division games are my least favorite games. This is a true story. I like new and unique matchups. So I'm the one that like always wants to go to the AFC game. Like I am so stoked for Packers Broncos and Packers Ravens. Like I think those are such fun games. I like seeing unfamiliar opponents and players that you don't see every year. I've seen Packers Vikings, I don't know what, 35 years times, 2 plus some playoff games. I mean, I've probably seen 75 Packers Vikings games in my lifetime. Like I've seen a lot of them. I get to see less of like a Packers Texans or a Packers Jaguars or something like that. So I always like those a little bit more, even some of like Packers Saints, we don't see that a ton. Like I always like those a little bit more, but it's not like don't like the NFC North ones. It's just those are the ones that I've seen these matchups so many times, and I just kind of like something different. But it is going to be what decides the season, especially for Green Bay this year. So very, very important games. Andy, do you think Matt promoting coaches to positions they're inexperienced in could be a big factor as to why this team seems undisciplined at fundamentals? I know there's no all 22 on practice, but I started thinking about it after Justice brought it up. If your O-line coach has little experience, it's not unreasonable to say he might not drill technique as well as a 10, 20-year position vet. I don't think that it necessarily has to do with that. I think you can find good coaches that have switched, position groups. I think Edgar Bennett did a good job as a wide receivers coach, even though he was a full-time running back in his career. Like, I think there's things like that can work from time to time. I've seen some really good defensive coaches who came up on the offensive side of the ball and understood the offensive side so well that they knew how to coach defense because of it. Like, I don't think that there's always, and Mike gave the example of Adam Gase as well, right? Like, Gase didn't come up playing football. He just was really good at what he did and was smart, and he knew how to teach people. I don't care who gets the job, but they need to be held accountable to making sure that they're doing the job well and getting the players playing at the level that they need to. And that's the standard that needs to be set. Like right now, if I'm Matt and I'm seeing the stuff that's going on the offensive line, yeah, there needs to be a serious conversation. Is Luke Butkus the right person for that job? Again, I'm not trying to make a strong commentary on Luke one way or the other, because I don't know. He might be the best, he might be the worst again, but based on what I'm seeing, I don't see an offensive line that's growing enough. But Luke Butkus has been an offensive line. He was an offensive lineman. He's been an offensive line coach in the past. Like, I know he doesn't have like the largest resume. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I've seen young and experienced coaches be awesome. I've seen some veteran coaches that are well past their prime and have the game has outgrown them. So I don't really care if it's somebody that was off of a CFL assistant coach list, or if it was somebody who is coaching for the first time, or if it's a 30-year offensive line coach vet. I don't care what it is. Just get the job done. And if you're capable of doing it, great, then do it. And if not, then again, there needs to be accountability held for that. Let's see. Been driving me nuts. And if it keeps up, it's going to be my villain origin story with how much effort and investment goes into every other aspect of the team. Seems crazy not to hire experienced coaches. Yeah. Again, that stuff is weird. Mike talked about it as well. Justice talked about it. And, there's some buddy systems that goes on. There's obviously some nepotism in there as well. It's a close knit group of coaches in the NFL. And they don't open that up very easily. I think sometimes they should, but again, I don't care who gets the job as long as they can perform it. If they can't, then you need to move on and find somebody different. I'm now offering my spare kidney to anyone who will ask why Nixon is not being used on kick return. If I get there, Andy, one of these times, I promise I'll ask it, because I'm very much intrigued why as well. Watson has elite size and speed and solid hands. What's holding him back from being a true number one? Release package, deceptive cuts during routes, agility, etc. Yeah, I would say I think there's some things on route running and the release off the line of scrimmage that could separate him a little bit more. I also think he's just doing a great job. I don't have a ton of issue with the way Christian Watson's playing right now. He's been fantastic. I think he probably should be Green Bay's kind of true number one at the moment, and should be probably targeted a little bit more. I don't think he's ever going to be, an all-pro wide receiver, or probably even a Pro Bowler. But I think he's really freaking good. I think he's playing fantastic, and I would continue to feature him as much as I could in this offense right now. So I think Sean Mannion deserves some credit for Jordan's good play and development this year. Hard to say, but I kind of feel like he hasn't gotten much from Clements as he should. I kind of felt he had gotten as much as from Clements as he could. Yeah. I know that apparently assistant coach questions are very popular today. I'm sure Sean Mannion's doing a good job. He probably deserves credit for what he's doing. I think certainly, Clements deserves as a lot of credit for setting the foundation, but I do think Jordan's been more accurate. He's taken better care of the football. And and Malik Willis came in and played great this year. If I'm just judging it based on the play on the field, I'm very happy with Sean Mannion at quarterbacks coach. Downard at safeties coach. I think the safeties group has been phenomenal. I think, I know McKinney hasn't had his opportunities, but I think McKinney, Bullard, Evan Williams are playing fantastic football. I think the corners coach, for the most part, is getting about as much as he can from that group of corners. New linebackers coach, I think he's doing solid. I think Cooper and Quay are mostly playing well. I think McDuffie's mostly had a good season, a couple rougher weeks the last couple weeks. Defensive line coach, that's an interesting one. Early on, it looked great. In the last few weeks, maybe not so much. Offensive line coach, I would say, is struggling based on expectations right now. I mean, tight ends coach, good luck. You lost your best guy. So sorry. Good luck with that. Wide receiver coach, again, maybe some ups and downs. I think the running backs are mostly doing what they can. So yeah, again, tough to tell from the outside looking in, and all you can do is kind of base it upon which rooms are playing well and which ones aren't. And you can kind of make those judgments pretty easily if you're just kind of going position by position. Andy, thanks for all the content. Really enjoy your show. Every day is good, but Justice Thursday is my is must watch every week. Well, Jason, thank you for the kind words. I know the Justice one is very popular. It's always interesting. If you look at the Justice one, it's probably the most watched consistently of the guest shows. It gets the most comments / compliments in the comments of probably all the guest shows. It also usually gets the most thumbs down of any of the guest shows. So, make of the Justice that's not a commentary on Justice. Justice is incredible. I love talking to Justice every single time. It's just always funny. And for those of you who have not heard my spiel before, the reason we have a variety of guests that are all very different, that all bring different, unique aspects, is because because not everyone's going to be for everybody. I know people that, aren't a fan of the Justice episodes. Justice and I get very nerdy in those episodes. That's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I know people that love the Perry and Grant episodes because it's more just casual. Packers fans talking Packers stuff, right? Paul Brettel, his view from the locker room. Carmen Vitale, more of a national perspective, right? Paul Farrington, a view from another side of the other side of the coin, a view from a Vikings fan, a non-Packers fan point of view of what the Packers are bringing. I try to bring as many of those different, Mike Wall, a former player's perspective, like just different perspectives. And it's not all of them are going to be for everyone. That's okay. But I love having the different, type of guests that we have. I think they each bring something unique, and that's what I really love about it. But I appreciate the kind words, Jason. 12 personnel accounts for 35% of our plays. We have just one play out of 10. I feel like that needs to change quite a bit without Kraft for this team to succeed. Yeah, I talked to Mike about that, of just like, can you do some 10? Can you do some 0? Can you do some, jumbo package? I kind of right now, if I'm Green Bay, I'm gonna do some fun stuff. So I would try some full house stuff. I would try some unbalanced stuff. I would go a lot of 6 linemen with 3 wides and a running back. I think that would probably be one of the ones that I live in the most. We're just going, instead of Tucker Kraft or instead of Luke Musgrave, we're just bringing in Darian Kennard in that spot. We're going to bring in that extra blocker. We're going 3 wides. We've got a running back. And we're going to probably pass a lot out of that. But if you're going to come out in a nickel defense because of it, we're going to run with our extra offensive linemen. I like that idea a lot as well. I think you can survive with that. I might bring in 2 extra offensive linemen and a running back. And if I could put like Watson and Reed on one side, when I get Reed back, and do like a 2 wide set on one side with 2 extra offensive linemen, Jacobs in the backfield, I'm cool with that. I'm willing to try that. Like, I think there's some unique, different things that you can do. And I just think going 11 personnel or even 12 personnel and playing more tight ends and having more opportunities for tight ends is not the world that you want to live in if you're Green Bay right now. So I think have to look a little bit more at how you can maybe change some of that up. On the first Dobbs drop, I think I saw Love show frustration for the first time with a teammate. Not saying I want him to be a jerk, but I like that he showed a little fire. Yeah, I think it goes a little bit maybe on like Love will show some energy, some passion, and some frustration at times. Matt even said the same thing. He's like, hey, when Jordan's a little pissed off, I kind of like it. It's like that. I know he's locked in and he's ready to go. It's like, I kind of like that side. Some of that might come with time too. That first drop by Dobbs was, I talked about it with Paul Brettel and I talked about it with Paul Farrington. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it here, because if you listen to either of those shows, I go into that play in great detail. That's a very frustrating play for what Jordan did on that play. Just a really quick snippet. 2 wide receivers are in the same spot. a tight end and a running back run into each other, and then Jordan still makes something happen and Dobbs drops the pass. It was as ugly of a play that you could get. Jordan made something of it anyway, by just being Jordan, and then they still couldn't pay it off because it was a drop. I mean, that's like everything going wrong. So it was a very well designed play by Matt too. And then the other one, I talked to Paul Farrington and Ziggy about this as well. The low snap to Jordan. Both Watson and Wicks, and technically Golden, although I think Golden's going to eventually get covered up by a kind of like a robber safety, if I remember correctly. But both Watson deep and Wicks kind of like intermediate deep are coming open on that play. Matt talked about this a little bit in his presser too, where I was specifically Watson, but the receivers all win their routes, all three of them. And there's an opportunity for a big time explosive to Christian, and even a big play to Wicks too. If he just gets a clean snap, it's going to be a huge opportunity for a big play. And instead, the snap is at his feet. Jordan's got to go down to get it. And then he still, again, makes something out of it, gets the ball off, gets it to Musgrave, and Musgrave vomits it up. And thankfully, looking at that at the all 22 again, that sure as hell looks like a fumble to me. I don't know if it would have mattered. It's before halftime. Green Bay didn't get anything out of it. New York would have had it with like 20 seconds left. They probably could have gotten a field goal range, but the way the winds were, I don't know if it would have mattered. But still, lucky to not be a fumble in that scenario. Hell yeah, go Packers. Love it. Thanks so much for being here. Love the Mike Wall live. It was awesome to hear him talk about personal loyalty versus working towards a common goal. You can feel it in watching teams play. I think Matt LaFleur is trying to find his way in this. I think that's well said, John. More Chris Brooks, please, especially with the struggles at tight end. I just think, especially with Jacobs out, but Brooks needs to be that that third down running back. He's so good at blitz pickup. It just gives you so much. And quite frankly, like, yeah, you can get a check down to Josh on third down, but that's not what you're really hoping for anyway. And Chris can take a check down and take it for a first down. He's done that in the past. So I just think that needs to be his role. I don't think he needs any other role. And maybe some of the two running back set stuff you could do as well, but he really needs to be in there on third downs and obvious passing situations. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that they extend Quay? I'd probably say about an 8.5, maybe 7.5 to 8.5. They speak glowingly about him. He's a captain. He's got the green dot. I think they really want him back. Now, with money being a pinch and knowing that you have Cooper, Hopper, and McDuffie all under contract next year, could you get away with it? Yeah. I think you probably could. I think you could be probably pretty fine at linebacker, but you need a jump from Hopper in that situation. My guess is he's back. I think the C on his chest, the green dot, I think those things are very important. And I think Green Bay will find a way to get that deal done. For those who want LaFleur gone, I'm not necessarily happy with him between how he deals with rookies, coaches, etc. Check out possible head coaching hires. It's not great. Yeah, if you didn't listen to the Ari Meroff, I always don't know how to pronounce his name, but he did a podcast talking about like the LaFleur stuff. And he's like, man, I know crazy things happen in this league. He's like, from what I'm hearing, you'd be pretty stunned if anything happened. And he's like, if Matt were fired, he's like, every other coaching opportunity, Matt is the first guy on their list. He's like, he's that well thought of throughout the league. So if you think, and I know it's probably not you guys because you guys are members, so you probably wouldn't think that if you were here, but if you think myself or other Packers, whether it's the beat guys or whether it's other podcasters or whatever, are like, hey, they're being too easy on Matt or whatever, or they're being too complimentary or whatever. The national media, when they got wind that like there's this Matt LaFleur could be on the hot seat stuff, are all to a T like, you guys are effing insane. Like, he's one of the best coaches in the league. What are you possibly thinking? So if you think that the local people are like, what are you thinking? The national is like even a step above that. I still to this, like I've said all along, it's going to take a long losing streak and or really losing the locker room. It's going to take one of those things and maybe both. It's the only thing. If he keeps the locker room, I don't see him going anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean he gets the extension. That doesn't mean that he maybe doesn't have to bring on an offensive coordinator to call plays. Doesn't mean that he's not, maybe on a really hot seat going into 2026. But I would still be very, very stunned if there's anything that happens with Matt between now and the start of next season, barring, again, a huge losing streak or losing the locker room. No need for Jamal Williams. I love Jamal. I don't think that changes anything for your team whatsoever. My balls itch. Thank you for the super chat. I don't think I thanked Speed Spree for all. Sorry, with all your upper and lower case there, I couldn't tell. Thank you for the super chat as well. Do you see a notable difference on defensive stops, turnovers, or offensive production when we pressure with 5 versus 4? I'd have to look at that closer. My balls itch. I don't have a great feel for that without looking at the numbers directly in front of me, and I haven't researched it at all. So I will say this. There was a chart today, I think it was primarily for Minnesota, of like pressures versus, or like, it was on the what is that? The y-axis, it was like blitz percentage, and on the x-axis, it was pressure percentage. I mean, you want to be in like the lower right? Lower right is that you're not having to blitz and you're getting a ton of pressure. Like upper right is that you're blitzing a lot and you're getting a ton of pressure. Like upper left is that you're blitzing a ton and you're getting no pressure. And then lower left is that you're not blitzing at all and you're getting no pressure. And Minnesota was like acres ahead in the upper right of they're blitzing a lot, but they are getting a crap ton of pressure. And Green Bay was like pretty good on the x-axis of where like pressure was, but not maybe as far as you would like them to be. And they were pretty low on like the blitz percentage, access. And I think if Jeff were to just bring a little bit more pressure, I think you would see, or a little bit more blitzing, I think you would see that pressure number go up a little bit. And I do think that that would be advantageous for Green Bay. I don't think you need to be where Minnesota is. Don't necessarily know that you have the corners for that, although I don't know that Minnesota does either. But I think they have to figure out a way to up that pressure a little bit, up the blitzing a little bit, to up that pressure a little bit, especially if, Rashawn and Devontae are going to struggle to get home and they're one-on-ones and everyone's going to double and triple Micah. You might just need to be a little bit more aggressive as a blitzer. Odd question. Why can other YouTubers use NFL film in these videos and not you? All right. Great question. The first thing is, we have been doing film with Mike Wall. So we are putting some film stuff out there for you. So far, okay, college film is, you put college film on and you're going to get a copyright hit pretty quick from everything that I've heard so far. Meaning take it down and YouTube, starts threatening your channel and things like that. So far, from what's been happening throughout the NFL, and I've seen this from other channels as well as my own, is if you use NFL film, you can make the video, but you cannot monetize it. And or if you monetize it, the NFL takes the money. So I could theoretically, based on what I've seen so far, because Mike has kind of been a trial run for what we've been doing with film. From what I've seen so far, I could do film episodes and just not monetize those. If I'm going to probably do something like that, I would probably do them for members and then just not monetize it and do it members only content. I do still have a little bit of a fear of like over time that could change. That ultimately they could say, hey, you're using copyrighted material, knock it off. And then, that changes the calculus a little bit. And so there is always that fear. I think the thing for me, and where I've been very, very cautious with it, is like the YouTube channel is about like the audio side and the YouTube channel are about 50-50 for what I do to make this work as my full-time job, right? If all of a sudden they would be like, oh, you've used a bunch of copyrighted material, we're taking down your channel, like it would be absolutely brutal. Like it would be a life-altering event for me if all of a sudden my YouTube channel got pulled for something like that. So we're trying it out a little bit with the mic stuff to kind of see how it goes. And we'll kind of go from there if it's something that we want to maybe pursue from a members only kind of thing in the future. But right now, Mike's doing a great job with it. We'll continue to let him kind of do that. We'll kind of play it by ear a little bit. And I'll probably for the time being kind of continue to do what I do. But it just again depends for some of those other channels. They are not able to monetize again that content, which again is not the worst thing in the world. And I was worried it was going to be worse than that. And with college film has been much more aggressive with like, we're giving you a copyright hit and things like that. And then that gets really iffy and like channels get taken down and it's not great. And again, my worry is just of like all of a sudden there's a switch that flips and the NFL is all of a sudden like, nope, start giving copyright hits. And then it gets iffy. So it's more of just a self-preservation thing than anything else. I've said this before and I'll say it again. There is nothing that would be more enjoyable and or easier for me. Like I can literally just like right now pop on film for you guys. I can add to my screen and put on the all 22 and I could easily just like the play that I was talking about, I can show you instead of just talking about it, right? And this is members only. So again, I could probably get away with it and maybe I'm just being ultra conservative with it, but the channel has been extremely successful and I love it. And, people seem to like it without me maybe having to take what may be a risk, may not be a risk. And so that's the reason that I've mostly stayed away from it so far. Maybe unnecessarily so, but I don't know, makes me feel a little bit better that I don't have to worry about it if I start using it. All right, Ralph, would Belton at right guard be that bad? I don't get it. I don't think it's the easy button solution that people think it is. I'll start by saying that. I think Green Bay is also cognizant of the fact that with Jordan Morgan, they may have, caused some issues with him by moving him to a bunch of different spots earlier in his career. And I think they've been more cognizant with Jordan now, and specifically with Anthony Belton of, hey, we're going to put you at a spot and we're going to keep you there and have you really try to learn that spot. Then once you learn that one, maybe we'll play you somewhere else, but we really want you to master that one spot first. I think that probably makes good sense for Anthony Belton. I think he needs a lot of technical work and I think he needs to get settled in somewhere. At the same time, I don't know that the right guard position or some of these positions have been really solidified the way that you want. And maybe it is time. Although I would say I would probably start with Darian Kennard first and see if he could maybe work at right guard, but they seem pretty set at Jordan Morgan at the moment. So again, would I be maybe willing to try it? Sure. Do I think it probably solves a ton? I don't think so. And I do like the fact that they're sticking him at one position and kind of keeping him there. But at some point, it might just be worth a shot to try it one way or the other. Obviously, we can't lose Jacobs, but I'm hopeful him being out this week makes LaFleur run the offense through Love. Seemed like that's how he called the game after Jacobs' injury. Yeah, although they still handed to Wilson was like 11 times in that game. Most of that being once Jacobs was out. So they still definitely used him. I'd rather have Jacobs in there. And also, if Jacobs has any chance to go, he's going to fight to play in this one. So I wouldn't rule Jacobs out quite yet, just knowing he's going to want to do everything he can to play in this game. But either way, whether Jacobs is in there or not, what you really want to see is Matt call a similar type of game to what he did against New York. It'll be interesting too against Minnesota. Minnesota is not the team that's just going to play you to high safety and a bunch of safe coverages. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to come after you. That could actually end up being advantageous for Green Bay if they can handle it correctly. What was with LaFleur today saying Musgrave needs to play more? What from Sunday's game tells him that? That was yesterday, first of all. But I don't know. He did say, and as I'm through this game right now, outside of the two really egregious, fumble/drop plays, there was some decent stuff on tape from Musgrave. I think the other thing too is just, Fitz and Wiley have their own, deficiencies as well. You just don't have a core tight end with Tucker Kraft being out. So I just think that they recognize that Musgrave is the most talented of the bunch and that they got to start figuring out a way to get more out of him to make that tight end position a little bit more successful. That's my guess. But I talked about this today with Paul Brettel as well. So you guys will get that tomorrow afternoon of like that one caught me by surprise as well. I was pretty surprised. It did kind of like a double take when he said that. You can tell Mike likes his interactions with you, his respect for you. That's cool. Gary, it really truly meant a lot to me. What he said yesterday, if I'm being totally transparent and honest, there is always, when you do something like this, you really put yourself, especially with me doing this every single day, 365 days a year, sometimes more than one episode, live shows, etc. sometimes right after games. So you have no lifeline. You haven't rewatched the games yet. You're always putting yourself out there. And there's always this like, am I saying something wrong? Am I doing something different? Like, or could I do something different, etc. To have Mike, who I think the world of, and I think, how he goes about analytically breaking down games and knowing that he played the game, to have even, a sliver of that respect it means the world, sincerely. So that was one of the cooler moments of anything that I've ever done, if I'm being honest. And it meant a lot. So now I'm glad it came across that way as well. But yeah, that was pretty special. Beast can't lose 3 games in a row at home, especially not 2-9. Can we expect any improvement from the O-line, or is this just what it is? Can always, I would say, desire improvement. Expect, I don't know that I'm expecting it at this point, but yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to continue to see some improvement from this line. I did think Aaron Banks played better this week. That's a positive sign. Zach Tom is a very good offensive lineman. Like, I think some things can come together to make this a more solid offensive line, a more efficient offensive line. I think there were some signs of that, but overall, overall, I still think there's a ways to go if they want to be a contender. So I think this probably is more what it is now that we're 11 weeks into this thing, but it's always worth being hopeful. And I've seen crazier things happen in the past. And if they can go out and start playing better, I would certainly be all for it. Went back and watched the Parsons trade live stream. Man, those were good times. That was a very hectic and rushed and chaotic and fun night. One that I will remember probably forever, of just, especially with the scenario that I was in, from going from, could this happen, to, I know I've got this show that I'm going to see Oasis, but what are the odds that the Packers trade for Micah Parsons when I go to the show? And I told this at the time, but I almost made the joke the day of like, well, I'm heading to the Oasis concert. Wait until I get exactly the furthest away from home, and that's when the trade's going to happen. I'm like, you're making this about you, and it's not. And then so I didn't tweet it, and literally the furthest away from home that I could have been, I get there, trade's done, turn right around, go through traffic, have the most fear of missing out that I've ever had in my life. I'm like, I just want to be on camera right now. I just want to be talking about this. And then I think the really cool thing is I was so kind of worried that I would get home and like everyone had already like talked about it and digested it or whatever. And to then go on and do like a 4-hour live stream, and everyone was just freaking out still. As fun as it gets. Bill, it's admirable. We are 6-3-1 considering we've been playing against 2 teams every game for the past 8 weeks. Yeah, they have been playing themselves very tough. They're nearly undefeated against themselves. I pointed this out, I think it was to Mike. Every team has 1 win. Every team has 2 losses. Everyone. The Titans have 1 win and 2 losses. The Patriots have 1 win and 2 losses. Everyone has at least 1 win. Everyone has at least 2 losses. So that's really a 5-1-1 record in their 7 games that are outside of the 1 win and 2 losses that everyone in the league has. So it's the other 7 to 8 games that decide where you are in the pecking order of everything. So in those 7 games, Green Bay's 5-1-1. It's not the best. It's certainly not the worst. I think being number 6 in the NFC, I think that's almost a little bit tough considering everyone's got 1 win and 2 losses, and Green Bay's only got, 1 tie and 1 loss on top of all their other wins. The fact that they're at the 6th seed right now, but a lot of time left. Green Bay's got everything in front of them, and these division games, especially the ones against Chicago. Talked about it with the Paul Farrington guys today. That show will be out tomorrow morning, later tonight for you guys that are members. Those Bears-Packers games, there's a non-zero chance that Bears-Packers could decide who gets the final spot in the playoffs. Seattle and San Fran, pretty easy schedules. The Rams are going to get in. So there's a good chance you get 3 NFC West teams. You're going to get the 1 NFC South team, probably Tampa. You're going to get 1 NFC East team, probably, which amounts to the Philadelphia Eagles. And then 2 spots left, theoretically, for the NFC North. And the Detroit, Chicago, Green Bay, because Chicago and Detroit have a game left this year. Chicago has 2 games against Green Bay, and Green Bay has a game against Detroit, obviously on Thanksgiving. That triangle of games, technically 4 of them, are going to go a long way in deciding, I think, which 2 teams in the NFC North get in the playoffs. Um, I know you guys know this for the most part, but just in case you're cheering for Aaron and the Steelers this week for sure, you want to spend some extra energy right now cheering against the big ones are Detroit, Chicago, Seattle, and San Fran. Those 4 are the ones you really want to be cheering extra against. Everything else is pretty much good, but those are the 4 big ones that you want to cheer against. To a slightly lesser extent, maybe Carolina just as an ultra just in case, but the other 4 for sure. I don't want to cause any division amongst the Pack-A-Day fan base, but this question is important and needs to get answered. Green or gold, Andy? Just in general, like what's a better color? I mean, I probably wear green a lot more than I wear gold in my everyday life. Gold obviously has a lot more value. I don't know. They're equally important, Drew BDU, because you can't have green and gold without either of them. So one or the other. I'm good with either, but you really need both. Non-division game tickets are cheaper too. That's true. Bears fans are driving me crazy, but credit to them for finding ways to win this season. Yeah, listen, I think it's going to be mostly fake, but I don't think they're like a legitimate contender or anything like that. I don't think they're really the best team in the NFC North. In fact, I think they're closer to third. I think they are third, quite frankly. But they're going to be a pain in the ass to play this year and probably for the foreseeable future. And now Ben Johnson has a really strong foundation to start with. You know, getting the buy-in from the players by winning these games early is going to go a long way. And they've now set the foundation for what's to come. And it should kind of get better from the next seasons on. Maybe not the rest of the season because Chicago's schedule the remainder of the way is really, really difficult. But Ben Johnson's done a really good job of setting the foundation there. And they're going to be a pain to play this year and probably going to be a trouble team to deal with in future seasons as well. Seymour Butts. We have my balls itch and Seymour Butts now as both members. Thank you guys very much. David Paxton. Every time Love throws a mid-deep level route cutting toward the side, it feels like he throws an absolute dime. Feels like we don't execute more than 1 to 2 per game, but more would be sweet. Yeah, those are always, I think, for a coach, just a little bit nerve-wracking because you miss that a little bit inside, and that's, you know, potential pick 6 opportunity. So you don't want to live in that world too often. Even if you throw a perfect pass, if the corner just, you know, reads it and undercuts it, by the time the ball gets there, you can't pause time, right? He just cuts it and takes it. So you don't want to live in that world too often, but I don't disagree with you at all, David. It's one of his best thrown balls for sure. Maybe the most head-scratching play I've seen this year was McDuffie breaking up Bullard's INT. What was that? I may or may not have been screaming at my TV at that point. So many dropped INTs. I have not got to this play yet on my all-22. I did watch it on the rewatch. McDuffie's screaming towards the wide receiver that's about to make the catch on the play. So he's screaming out there, which is what you want. You're preaching to your guys like, hey, get out there, rally to the football, go make a play. And he's doing a great job of doing that. And then remember, it wasn't like Bullard undercut it. It goes off the receiver's hands and then bounces and is going to go to Bullard. So in McDuffie's, I think, effort to first go to the right receiver and then see the ball in the air, I think he probably gets ball in the air and starts going towards that as well, not recognizing that Bullard's in front of him, ready to pick that ball off. He's just going to make a play. He's clearly not trying to break up a pass from Javon Bullard. That's not what he's trying to do. I think he's just in a bang moment of like, all right, I got to go to this receiver. All right, now I'm at the receiver. Oh, now it's off his hands. Oh, now let me see if I can catch it. And boom, you know, it ends up hitting Javon Bullard and breaking up the play. That's just, as Matt would say, sometimes, unfortunately, the cost of doing business. You're preaching guys rally to the football and go aggressively and go make a play. And sometimes in the heat of doing things, those bullets are flying really fast and you can't stop mid-time again and be like, oh, Javon's there. You know, so I think he's just trying to make a play. It just is unfortunate the way that it happened. Just as my favorite guest. Appreciate that, Gary. Glad that you're liking that show. Always love talking to Justice as well. Is your collab with Titletown Talks going to be live streamed? I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to do live. Right now I'm set to record with him on Thursday night. And the plan right now would be for that show to go live on Saturday. So I did think about doing it live, but I think we're going to do it on, I know for sure, again, we're recording Thursday night. And I just think based on the timing and everything, I think it'll work out a little bit better just for myself and my schedule this week. If rather than doing that one live, we'll make that the primary episode for Saturday. Don't understand the usage with Musgrave. Why not use him a little more like Vegas uses Bowers? Obviously, he's not good yard after catch, but Bowers lined him up in the slot out wide. Yeah, they're two totally different players, Menace. Bowers is a wide receiver in a tight end's body, meaning he can run wide receiver routes. Musgrave cannot. Musgrave cannot. What we want to do with Musgrave, there would be kind of two primary routes that I would want to see him on. Vertical routes up the seam. So if you get a cover two, can he just run past the linebacker with his size and you can hit him up the seam or, something like that. That's number one. And then number two would be the deep crossers where maybe he's in line out here and then you're going to go fake stretch play to the left and then bootleg out to the right. And Musgrave just has the ability, especially again, if he's matched up with like a linebacker, just to bend that thing through the entirety of the field and use his speed to run away from the defender. If you start just putting him in the slot and have him say like, do like a pivot and go or what, any sort of nuanced route, it's very, if you think just some of the run after the catch looks clunky and clumsy, some of the route running is the exact same way. That's not his forte. So Bowers, you get out him. He's as good as it gets right now for tight ends that you can put in the slot and run stuff like a wide receiver. And if you get the right matchup with Bowers, whether it's a corner that just can't match him physically, or whether it's a linebacker or safety that can't match him from a speed standpoint, he's a special player. Unfortunately, Musgrave's not in that same caliber of route runner as a Brock Bowers is. EM2, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Appreciate that. You guys are just full of questions. I love it. When Quay went out, I was hoping that Hopper would get more snaps. Should we be concerned about Hopper's development, that he hasn't overtaken McDuffie? No, I've seen a lot of this. Listen, McDuffie has experience with the green dot and calling the plays. That's the big thing. Yeah, I think it probably has less to do with the Hopper McDuffie sort of play and a lot more to do with that person's coming in with the green dot and has to be able to call plays. McDuffie has a ton of experience in the defense, is well-versed at calling it, can get everyone on the same page. And quietly, again, the last 2 weeks hasn't been as good, but prior to that, McDuffie was playing some really good football as well. So, and then Hopper took McDuffie's spot in the base 4-3. That's what they've done in other scenarios where Quay has missed a couple plays here and there as well. That was not surprising at all. And I don't think it, again, has any commentary on Hopper whatsoever, because it's so important that McDuffie can go out there and call the plays and run the defense with Quay being out. And that's a huge, I think, reason why they brought Quay, or what brought McDuffie back, is to have somebody that has that experience doing that as well. Andy, I wanted to let you know you were my number one podcast of 2025. I spent 7,700 minutes listening or something. So in other words, I love the content. Beast, that's freaking awesome, my friend. Thank you so much for doing that. I love hearing those stories, and glad that you're still liking the show after 7,700 minutes. It's a lot of Andy. Hopefully you're getting some of the other pods as well, so you don't have to deal just with me every day. Happy to be joining your channel as a member. Andy, your content is second to none. I'd follow your content to any platform if YouTube ever became problematic. Now, football, does this team need a fullback? I would love a fullback. They started using Wiley a little bit. He did pretty well in that role. So more kind of an H-back type, but I would love a true fullback. I really, really would. But, they're really tough to find too. It's tough to find good fullbacks in the NFL right now because they're not being used in high school and college anymore in most offenses, right? So you almost a lot of times like taking players like linebackers and trying to convert them to fullback. And then that takes a learning process, and who's going to put in the time, effort, and energy to train a fullback. Your running backs coach is busy dealing with the running backs. Like, it gets kind of complicated, right? But I love a good old fashioned fullback. If you could find a good one, I'd be all for it. Mike, thank you for becoming a new member. You guys are awesome. Beast, one more random thing. I feel like Love's superpower is the fact that he doesn't get rattled. Sacks, interceptions, dropped. It doesn't rattle him. I've even seen Aaron get rattled, but nothing seems to get Love. I'm right there with you, Beast. I think he does a tremendous job. I do think it's one of his superpowers as well. Off topic, but did you see that the Rams punt at the end of the game? Probably the best I've seen. Don't know if I've seen a punt like that. I've seen a few of them lately, but that was right up there with as good as I've seen from a punt standpoint. Just getting it to bounce, go out at basically the inch yard line. It was a thing of beauty. Is there anything the Packers can do to help the tight end room as far as blocking? Is Mercedes Lewis still in the practice squad? He is, although I think Denver's probably going to have to add him to the active. I think this week. I think he's had 3 weeks of call-ups. It's either 2 or 3. Maybe he has 1 week left. But I think if Green Bay tried to sign him, Denver would probably just, say, no, we got him, or we'll put him on our active. I also think they had a lot of time to sign Mercedes and didn't have any question. I think the biggest thing as far as blocking, Drew, is I just want to see that sixth offensive lineman, which is basically what Mercedes is at this point in his career. Kennard's done a good job with it when they put him in there. They've had successful plays when they've lined up correctly. So I think just keep going to that. Put in Kennard as the extra offensive lineman, and you should be totally fine doing that. Beast, you're not a new member. The heck is that? You've been a member for a while. I don't know why that's showing up. Maybe you just renewed or something, but yeah, that's you've been a member for a while, my friend. I do realize McDuffie wasn't actually trying to break it up. I was just generally confused what he was doing there. Your explanation makes sense. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just trying to explain, what happened in that situation. Much is made by Packers fans about how Jordan loves INTs when they happen are really bad ones. Does your tape analysis agree, or are the Packers fans still just getting used to how interceptions feel? No, I think there is a piece of that. He doesn't throw many, but when he does, he sometimes gets his money's worth for some kind of ridiculous picks. But again, he's been so great at taking care of the football. That's fine. If he's going to throw 3 interceptions every 10 games, sign me up for that from now until the end of his playing career. He's been phenomenal taking care of the football. I have no concern, but it does feel like when he does decide, to throw that pick, he's like, oh, we're going to get really wild in this. I'm going to show you just how much of a pick I can throw. It is kind of funny in that regard, but no, he's doing a great job. We need a Howie Roseman. I mean, I love some of the stuff that Howie does in being aggressive. I mean, the Jair thing looks terrible. The Jalen Phillips thing looks amazing. We'll see what the Michael Carter thing does. Some of the deals he does look really bad in hindsight. Some look really good. I think what you also have to recognize is there is going to be a piece from time to time of like, you continue to do that, the locker room starts to just kind of Jenga block a little bit, where you're starting to pull things out and put random things in, and you don't have a identity sometimes. And you can see some of the stuff like what's going on with AJ Brown right now, what happened with Devontae Smith earlier. And you see some of that stuff happen when you don't have like an organic locker room that came up together, and you're just sliding all these Jenga pieces in and out, and like, it doesn't always fit the right way, or puzzle pieces if you'd prefer. I think sometimes that can have a negative effect. The thing I love about Howie is that he's never satisfied. He is always looking for a way to get better, no matter what. Hey, if we have the opportunity to get better at this one spot just a little bit, damn it, we're doing it. I love that. I think more GMs should act in that same similar way. I think maybe there's times where Green Bay could live a little bit more like that. I will also be willing to bet you, I don't think it's happened yet off the top of my head. I don't know, maybe they regret letting Milton Williams or Josh Sweat go in free agency, although I think that was more of like a money thing than anything else. But I guarantee you what will happen is they're going to at some point give up on a young player or get rid of somebody that, didn't work right away. They're going to go to another team and they're going to become really great. Because if you don't allow sometimes players to develop in your system, then you're going to get rid of them and they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to get that opportunity and they're going to develop elsewhere. And you're also going to have situations like Jair Alexander, where you throw a pick at a player and you bring them in and you're all excited and they don't amount to anything either. So there's no perfect way of doing this, is what I'll reiterate. There's no perfect team building. I do think there's stuff from Howie that I really like, but there's other stuff that he probably needs to tone down as well and needs to probably be a little bit careful with. But his general philosophy, I do appreciate and enjoy, but just know that there can be some threads to that don't always work out the way that you want. David, thank you for the super chat. Feel like Love underthrows a lot of his deep balls, but where the wide receiver is supposed to be and not where they will be. Are we too fast, or does he just need to work on, or am I off base? I think there is something to it. I think his deep ball is something he needs to continue to work on. I think there's times it's beautiful. I think there's other times where it's just a little bit too much air. I think he aims it a little bit too much. And I thought right before the leg injury last year was looking the best it ever did. Probably something he kind of needs to constantly get in the lab with. I think some of the wind conditions from time to time can play with that as well, but he has a gorgeous deep ball. I just think sometimes the accuracy can go on him a little bit on those. Do you look at the Philly game different after what they did to Detroit? A little bit. I still think there were opportunities there for Green Bay, which is frustrating. But yeah, that defense right now looks very legit in Philly. I'll put it that way. And I think they showed that again against Detroit. It makes you maybe think of like, all right, Green Bay's offense, Detroit's offense had the same issues that Green Bay's did. That maybe makes you feel a little bit better. We do not need a Howie Roseman. Did we forget that we traded for Micah Parsons? I was going to mention that as well. And again, I think Goot's doing a really good job overall. I think there's things that Goot's doing really well. I think there's things that Howie does well. Again, it's just the different ways of managing a team. Some things are going to work out, some are not. You hope to get more right than wrong. And certainly one for Goody was trading for Micah, which was huge. Fruits of your labor, you get better questions when you educate your fan base as well as you do. I appreciate that, M2. It's very nice of you to say. I upgraded to all pro, didn't become well, Beast, that's even more amazing. Thank you so much for that. David, I feel like Love underthrows a lot. Oh, we went over that. Toyota-thon is here. If we catch the ball, we are unstoppable. I hope. Go Pack Go. Should be epic. Should be epic. All right, friends, I think I got to all of your questions. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you guys so freaking much. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for being members. We'll do another members Q&A next week. We've got happy hour on Friday live. We'll do live post-game show. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a pregame show this week, but we will do a live post-game show. We'll see if somebody else wants to take the pregame show this week. And then we'll have a Mike Wall live on Monday again. So lots of live stuff coming up. Make sure to like, subscribe. Well, you guys are all subscribed. Never mind. But make sure to like if you haven't already. I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.